Hello. I was just going to say I'm standing on scrap wood again, but I'm not planning to fall off it this week, and then I fell off it. So I really should just move this. Would be easier for me. Anyway, Work in Progress Wednesday. I had a fit of amazing productivity last night and warped up both the looms. So I've got a little bit of weaving to talk to you about. I've got my crochet cardigan to talk to you about, and I've got this which came off the loom technically yesterday. I finished it Monday, and then I was dealing with the fringe. So I'll show you all that. I need somebody to stand next to me and hold up. I was going to say I need a table, but somebody wants to start a drinking game and I'm not responsible for your livers. So this was on the loom last week. It's just a plain weave scarf in the Sierra Chunky, which is a nice quick weave. And it's a really beautiful range of blues. And it just shifts through those blues in a really nice sort of calming way. Everyone's feeling a bit zen now. So it hasn't been wet finished, still got its ends, which means I can show you the fringe ends because this one's not going to have a fringe. So it's finished. That's not a very straight edge, but it might work out, I don't know. So it's finished with a flat edge, flattish, technically flat. It's kind of flat because the fringe is woven back into the piece. So all of those little bits there will be trimmed off. I was going to say chopped off, sounds a bit drastic. So I'll trim those off once I've done the wet finishing. But what you end up with when you do that is a sort of slightly firmer end. You can see that it's a little bit lighter there where the warp is showing through more because the warp is double thick at the ends. So that is a good way to deal with fringes if you don't want to have a fringe. It's a little bit time consuming, but I find fringe dealing with, yes, is a little bit time consuming in and of itself. And it's a nice finish and I like the way that it gives a sort of flattish end. So that'll have a bath and then I'll show you that next week and it'll be all finished and all these little fringy bits will be trimmed off. If I was more precise with where I was ending my fringes, you can see they're a little bit all over the place there. I could just leave that as an interesting feature, but I'm not precise enough and it looks a bit rough. So that'll have a bath and it'll be all good. And I'll trim those off. And I'll show you that next week. And I'm going to keep waving it at you. Now, what do I have to hand? To hand, I have the cardigan. I'm just organising myself somewhat here. Now, I'm not as far along on this as I was hoping to be. I was hoping to be up to the armholes, but the planets did not align. So I think I've got another two rounds to do before I start the armholes. But this is how it is looking so far. Am I in shot? There we go. So I've got another, that's sort of the clunky side. Let's show you the slightly less clunky side. So I've got yarn in the way. There we go. No, you go under there and then we'll talk to you later. So I've got another couple of rounds to go before I start putting in the armholes, but it is coming out really nicely. It's going to fit and I'm at these rounds here, which I can actually do while watching television. So these middle rounds, I had to have complete silence. I had to have closed the road, scare away the birds, and just have absolute silence so I could think about them. These ones, I can watch telly. And I'm about to get into the rounds where I'm going to have to close the road again. But that is how that is looking. It's coming along, as I said last week, a lot quicker than I was expecting it to. So I'm pleased with that. I'm really loving this yarn. I'm still on the first skein, which makes me think maybe I've bought too much. Oh, that's got a hair in it. All of my crochet has hair in it, to be fair. This has got quite a lot of my hair in it and also some of my dogs. But it's for me, so it's okay. What was I saying? Oh, yes, I think maybe I've overbought this yarn because I bought 8 skeins, which is 3.2 kilometres of yarn. And I should probably only need 2.4 kilometres of yarn, give or take. But this is going to look really nice on the loom, so it'll be fine. I haven't wasted my money. I'm just spend a little bit too much of it. So I'm going to show you the big loom, which is not very far advanced, but it has got something on it. And then I'll come back and show you the little loom. Very fresh on the loom, as is traditional. This is a mix of, not Bendigo Wool Mills, this is Hobie Yarns Frutter. I'll try and get that in the light. I think it's the Cornfield colourway, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's what they've called it. And that's what it looks like when you've taken the middle out to warp up your loom. And there's also stripes here in bands of 4 threads. There's one in there, of Bendigo Wool Mills Classic 5-ply in Magnolia, which looks white on camera, or whitish on camera. It has got a touch of yellow in it. So what I'm hoping for is an effect, and I don't know what that effect is going to be, but I'm hoping there is one. because there's going to be two different shrinkage rates for these yarns, and I don't know which one's going to shrink more, probably the cotton. And there's also two different stretches, so the wool is actually more stretched under tension than the cotton is. I'm already having a few little tension bubbles. It's going to be fine. It's going to be absolutely fine. You can worry too much about these things. So when it comes off the loom, which will be in a while, because as you know, just started it, hopefully something will happen with those differences in the yarns, and if not, it'll just be a very nice little wrap anyway, because the colours are so nice. So it's an experimentation without any sampling, because I don't tend to sample because I'm too impatient to just weave a thing. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, so these little bands here are just a little bit stretchier on the loom. So maybe when I take them off the loom, they'll collapse a little bit. I don't know. It's exciting. We're going to find out next week. Hopefully next week. I hope I can show you what's happening with this next week. I hope there's more progress than this next week, but we'll see. So on the weekend I had a bit of weaver's block in that I couldn't decide what I wanted to put on the little loom. I had a lot of ideas and a lot of yarn, and I pulled out quite a lot of that yarn and put it all on my table and thought, that's a big pile of yarn. But I couldn't decide what I wanted to put on the loom first. And I think the problem was I wanted to warp up and also weave up the project on the big loom at the moment. And that was sort of sitting at the front of my brain, and I couldn't settle on something for the little loom. So once I had the blue scarf off the big loom and could warp up that one that I just showed you, my brain was a little bit free and loose, and I decided to start my little loom projects again with this. So this is Bendigo Woolen Mills 8-ply Classic, or Classic 8-ply, in dark iris, with Modavira Wild, which is discontinued. It's from my aunt's yarn stash. And the way I've set it up, I'll show you a bit closer up, is this is a fluffy yarn, as you can see down there. Very fresh on the loom, as always, in Work in Progress Wednesday. I've set that up so that this yarn is just in the slots, so that there is one strand of that yarn and then a strand of the purple and then another strand of that yarn. I've done that for two reasons. First of all, it looks cool. It's a nice pattern, nice easy pattern to do. And secondly, it's a fluffy yarn, so it will grab onto its neighbour if its neighbour is also fluffy. So by separating them, they don't hang on to each other, and it gives me a clean shed to weave through. But I also just think it looks cool. And when this is off the loom and it's had a wet finish, this will actually fluff up a little bit more and give a nice texture as well as a nice sort of visual effect, because I like the purple and the greens and the blues and the teals. That's me naming colours, you're welcome. So that will give it a little bit of texture as well as some colour, and I think it should look quite good. Of course I do, otherwise I wouldn't have warped it up. I'm in a little bit of a tangle up the back here because I got confused, but it's all right, it's going to be fine. So that is on the little loom. That should be quite a straightforward weave, and hopefully I will have that off the loom for next week. I make no promises. So that is all of the crafty stuff for this week. Let me just arrange myself so I don't fall over quite so often. We can hope. So the other thing is I did open the shop on Saturday. I put up a community post about it, and that was as much as I said. And so I'll put a link in the description to the shop. Not everything is in there yet, because I took some very blurry photographs. I took a load of my weaving down to the town, to borrow the front wall of a cafe to take some photos against, and realised that I'd left some at home, for one, and also when I got home some of my photos were not as sharp as they could be, and I appreciate that blurry photos are very fashionable for wedding photography, not so much for product photography. So not everything is in the shop yet. The shop is under my weaving brand of Wild Chook. I'll put a link. I don't know why my hand is so active. I'm going to put that in my pocket. It's getting above its station. So I'll put a link in the description to that shop. Please don't buy anything if you don't want to, but feel free to have a look and a window shop and poke around and see what's there. There is also a Facebook page for Wild Chook, which I am endeavouring to actually use. I'm not very good at self-promotion. And that's where I will probably post when new things are in the shop. So there's a few more photos to go up, a few more a few more weaves. Products, such a big word. So it is there, it is open. Please don't buy anything if you don't want to buy it, but feel free to go and have a window shop. Link in the description. Facebook link under that link. There we go, there's my hand again. So I am going to stop now because this hand needs to have a talking to, and I will see you next week. You have a lovely rest of your day and a lovely rest of your week. Why not? Treat yourself. And I will see you soon. Bye for now.